The 2010s were probably the biggest decade in movie history. I think it's a decade with the most billion-dollar movies. And it's easy to see why, with movies like the MCU or the DCEU and other big budget movies came out in this decade. It also gave new life to independent films or low budget movies. These are five of the best, or rather most influential movies of the 2010s. At number five, I have Black Panther. Now, I could have easily placed any MCU movie like the Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, or even Endgame or Infinity War, but I chose Black Panther because I feel like it had the biggest impact of any MCU movie. It was the first time that a black character was part of the MCU and had his own movie. We already had Blade as a Marvel character, but Blade wasn't set in the MCU until recently. And it's also one of the biggest cultural films of the decade. It is universally loved. Personally, I love Black Panther, but I don't think it's one of the best or even the top 5 MCU movies, but it definitely is in my top 10, and it's a movie that had a huge impact on me. And number 4, I have The Social Network, a movie that basically tells the story of Facebook. Facebook is still probably the biggest social media platform. This movie just gives you an insight into the mind of the creators of Facebook, and it's just excellent storytelling with fantastic performances, great direction, and a movie that you definitely have to watch. If you haven't seen it yet, then go check it out. At number 3, I have a coming of age story that's more of an independent movie, and that is Lady Bird. Saoirse Ronan is just fantastic, and it's one of the better coming of age movies of the 2010s. It's a movie that really dives into the mind of what it's like being a teenager or just trying to survive in a social circle and facing things like peer pressure and everything that a teenager goes through that most of us probably have forgotten or are still trying to recover from. Lady Bird is probably the must-see coming of age films. I watched it, I think, earlier this year, and it's just such a fantastic and beautiful story. At number 4, well, these aren't actually ranked, but this is the 4th movie on my list, and that is Dunkirk, which I believe is one of the best war movies ever. The 2010s had some great war movies. Hacksaw Ridge is definitely one of my favorite movies of all time. But Dunkirk by Christopher Nolan just has a different impact. It is beautifully shot. It's just so different. It almost feels like a video game, but it doesn't look like it. It feels like you are actually on the front lines of the war and that you are getting ready to go into battle. It is perfectly acted. It is well written and beautifully shot. Christopher Nolan is one of my all-time favorite directors, if not my favorite. So I will definitely recommend this movie to everyone who's a fan of Nolan or who loves a good war movie. And finally, on this list, I have Mad Max Fury Road, which we can all say is definitely the best action movie of all time. And what makes it better is that a big part of it was shot in the Namib Desert, not far from where I grew up. Well, actually, it's a few hundred kilometers away, but it was shot in the country where I grew up, and it's just a fantastic film with great performances. I mean, Tom Hardy barely speaks in this movie, but his performance is so wonderful. Charlize Theron is fantastic, and really what this movie achieved as an action movie is just fantastic. In an era of so many CGI effects, this movie utilized a lot of practical effects, a lot of stunt work, and it just brings this beautiful, wonderful, awesome story to life. A movie that I can watch over and over again, and each time I get more excited than the last. It's one of the best cinematic experiences that I ever had. This film just spoke to me in ways that other action movies didn't at the time. The big screen just brought everything to life in such a beautiful manner. And I know that you probably seen this movie. If you haven't, then you are missing out on a fantastic film. So go check out Mad Max Fury Road if you haven't yet. And for now, that's my 5 most influential or best movies of the 2010s. Obviously, there are other movies that I left off the list, but these are the 5 that I feel like I had to mention. It ranges between different genres, and it is what made me love cinema. Some of these movies are also the ones that helped me start this movie guy journey, especially Black Panther, I think Mad Max Fury Road. Let me know what you think are the 5 most influential or the best movies of the 2010s.